Healing supplies are often the crux of a lot of these challenges, for example, my New Vegas while over encumbered run. I'm convinced it would have been next to impossible to reach the boomers at Nellis with that agonising walk speed if I wasn't injecting myself with Stimpacks every other second. Shocker, I know, keeping yourself healthy is in fact the best course of action to not dying. But what if you couldn't heal yourself and therefore only had a finite amount of health for the entire game? Could you still complete it? Well, that's what we're about to find out as I ask the question, can you beat Fallout New Vegas without healing? Just to make this clear, this encompasses all forms of healing, not just Stimpacks. So, no food, no sleeping, no drinking from water sources, no regeneration implant, no vault canteen, and of course, no perks with healing benefits. As an added bonus, I also decided to not heal my rads either. Granted, that doesn't mean a whole lot in New Vegas as there are very few mandatory areas with high radiation. In other words, sit back and watch as I do my best Genji impression by criticising the lack of healing coming my way at all times. Now with all that out of the way, let's begin. If my health was going to be limited for the entirety of the playthrough, then of course I would want to naturally avoid as much combat as possible. That said, I've already done a complete pacifist playthrough, so I was making it a rule that I had to kill people this time around. With that, I had one very specific character type in mind. Using a hunting rifle is one thing, but I had my sights set on something grander. Something that would most definitely take some tension off combat encounters. I am of course referring to the anti-material rifle. Going over my options for weapons, I came to the conclusion that it would be the best one to work towards. Being a melee focused build is obviously out of the question, as I would take a sizable amount of damage just trying to close the gap on enemies with guns. And while explosives would be great for damage and crowd control, I know me better than most, and I know for a fact it would be the return of the human-propelled meat rocket as soon as I had to use the grenade rifle or launcher indoors. Anyway, my special stats are focused on the anti-material rifle and being able to get the caps to afford the damn thing. Hence why my luck is at 9 for gambling and a strength of 8 for the gun's strength requirement. Oh, and intelligence is at 9 because, let's be honest, when are skill points not important for these runs? Before moving on to my tag skills, I made sure to store the canteen in one of the nearby boxes so I could drop it as soon as possible. Don't want to accidentally take a sip from it and fail the run before I even leave Doc Mitchell's. Anyway, for tag skills I chose guns, speech and repair. Guns to get the most out of the rifle, speech to get by one very specific encounter that we'll get to in a bit, and repair for, well, repairs. Finally for traits I went with Logan's Loophole and Skilled. With what I have planned, Logan's Loophole may end up being a run saver, but more on that later. What's great about not having the ability to heal is that now all consumable items in Stimpacks are basically just free money. So I take said free money and transform it into a plasma pistol that I get from Chet. Then, after some brief bottle massacring with sunny smiles, I use said plasma pistol to take out Joe Cobb. I would like to show his death, but it's far too early in the video to show a head pop, unless we want this video to become age restricted, and God knows I already have enough of those. While Ghost Town Gunfight is a quick and easy way to gain your first level up, I was playing things cautious and didn't exactly want to throw myself in harm's way just so soon. Well, I mean I say that, but I'm currently heading for Vegas, meaning I'll need to contend with bark scorpions and potentially super mutants if I'm not careful. A random coyote on the way gets gooified, and right after I decide to pop into the nearby abandoned shack to grab some worthwhile loot and a golf club for the bark scorpions. You may be wondering why I'm grabbing a melee weapon given the whole wanting to avoid damage as much as possible, and it's simple really.
In close-range combat, a knife can sometimes be more useful than a gun.
Speaking of scorpion murder, I get another quick and easy kill with a plasma pistol on a normal rat scorpion, and despite how one-sided and easy this is, I am still worried the entire time. Making my way through Hidden Valley, and I get some great results with the club. While my melee weapon skill may be low, at the end of the day I do still have 8 in strength, so anywhere from 2 to 3 swings is more than enough to put the creatures out of their misery. Making my way through the Black Mountain shortcut as per usual, and I take things a lot slower this time. I am able to get lucky enough with the Nightkin spawns, as one of them has a chance to spawn down here and ambush you, making it rather difficult to get by the Indiana Jones Easter egg without getting shot. Speaking of the boulder, as I am not being hounded by mutants determined to create a wind chime out of my skeleton, I take the time to patiently wait for all the rocks to roll down the hill before slowly advancing and disarming the bear traps for extra experience, plus losing my first chunk of health to a random pebble stubbing my toe would just be highly embarrassing. From this point I am essentially home free, as the walk to Vegas is clear of all enemies. I did make a brief pit stop in the Repcon building to grab the suits of power armor and laser rifles from the Dead Brotherhood soldiers. I suppose you could say I came here for the holotape, but truthfully, I'm probably going to put the Brotherhood off as long as possible, as I'll want to be as prepared as I physically can before attempting to fight them. Now is probably a good time to mention I will be siding with Yes Man today. It's not because it's the easiest path to follow, but rather it is the only one that I can complete if I wish to not fail the run. Again, that's something I'll explain further when the time comes. I sell the power armor to the gun runners and use some of the funds to purchase some ammo for the rifle ahead of time, although I made sure to leave myself with at least enough money to pass the credit check. In retrospect, I could have just used the NCR uniform from the dead soldier at Black Mountain to take the monorail, but I suppose it never crossed my mind at the time. My time in Freeside is incredibly brief, as all I do is take out a few thugs before making my way to the strip and from there to the tops to begin gambling. At the sight of Benny, I level up a few times and spread the points across my speech, repair, guns and science skills, all of which will be important at some point today. Speech in fact comes into play right after I make my fortune at the casino, as I convince Swank to let me investigate Benny and have access to my weapons. I felt like a shootout in the casino wouldn't do me any favours, and that I should probably try and deal with Benny behind closed doors this time around. While the plasma pistol would honestly be more than enough, I wasn't taking any chances, so right before I got Swank to send Benny to his room, I returned to the gun runners, procured myself the anti-material rifle, and prepared for its first kill. I may have went a little overboard to go and grab armor-piercing rounds as well, but I wasn't taking any chances of him calling for help. To celebrate getting this far without taking any damage, I robbed the white gloves of everything they owned due to simply being luckier than them. I initially was just planning to spend this money on ammo over the course of the run, but then I remembered about the modifications for the anti-material rifle and bought those instead. I didn't bother with the lighter carry weight as it just seemed like a waste of money, but the suppressor and faster fire rate, yes please. With the rifle now in hand, I returned to Good Springs to help the town get rid of its one true threat.
Hello there. It's good to see a friendly face.
Oh, and I also helped out the townsfolk with some nearby mad explosives fetishists or something. At this point, I decided to do some travelling, or in other words, stuff that really has no bearing on the plot whatsoever. First, I marked the 188 on the map as another convenient source of ammo, should I need it. And then, I took my silver tongue over to Boulder City to convince the cans and NCR to maybe not shoot each other, which works for some reason. I also get some great drugs out of this, which is always appreciated, plus I should really put Logan's loophole to use at some point. With that situation behind us, I began heading down the road in the direction of Novak, and while I was there, I decided to stop at the dry lake for some easy experience, as I took out some of the fire ants from a distance. That was until I was approached by the radio man, and then watched as he ran headfirst into a battle against the hordes of fire ants. Miraculously, he not only survived the encounter, but managed to take them all out in the process. Sure, I just lost out on a ton of experience, but I think we just found one of the most competent soldiers the NCR has at its disposal, and they have him on radio delivery duty.
There goes my hero. Watch him as he goes.
Back on track, I am now heading for Cottonwood Cove. While it is entirely optional for Yes Man's quest, I'm going to show you why I cannot side with Caesar or House this time around. On the way, I completely turn the tables on the Vipers, who normally lie in wait for you with the grenade rifle, by approaching them from behind this time with some high-powered explosive ordnance of my own. I pass by Novak as honestly there is nothing in the town that helps me this time around other than Boone, but it's normally an unwritten rule in most of these runs that companions are forbidden, and that holds true this time as well. Following the road to the river, and I'm mindful of my surroundings as I very slowly make my way along, taking out everything in my path before it has a chance to see me. All except for this gecko that jump scared me and legit gave me the fright of my life. Granted, he is quickly dealt with thanks to a one-shot in VATS, but regardless, I have now sustained my first bit of damage. Thankfully, it's not a lot, but I should really be more careful from this point on. Arriving at the cove, and it's honestly a good thing I took a little damage, as it means I can show you this. When you take the boat ride up to the fort, you are restored to full health. I assume this is due to apparently taking a few hours and your character resting. This means that if I will be healed every time I take the boat, then I cannot reach Caesar without healing, locking out his questline, and I can never reach the bunker either, so Mr. House is also a bust. Thankfully, I made a backup save right before boarding the boat, so now that I've demonstrated why these two factions are impossible to complete for this challenge, I load back and return to Vegas. Earlier when I was in Boulder City, I was able to grab some turbo from the building Jessup was in. Well, it combined with Logan's loophole is about to save me a lot of potential damage as I get rid of Mr. House. See, while fighting the Securitrons is technically possible, let's not kid ourselves here, one of them is most definitely going to fire off their grenade launcher, and I'm going to be leaving here with a bunch of crippled limbs, assuming I survive at all. To that end, I go to the terminal that opens the secret entrance, and as soon as I open the door, I take some turbo, and then use my newfound Quicksilver powers to zip right past all the Securitrons and into the basement without taking so much as a single point of damage. For absolutely zero reason, I decided that House needed to be exploded, so after creating a safe enough distance, I let loose an explosive round that promptly ended his existence. One of the reasons I have been this cautious about saving my health isn't just because of the run, It's also because that since I still have close to max, I can run into Gamora and be as reckless as I want. Sure, I'm going to be leaving there with a good chunk of health missing, but you didn't all seriously think I wouldn't still be slaughtering the Omertas, right? It wouldn't be a New Vegas video after all if they were still given the pleasure of breathing. With the casinos out of the way, all that leaves is the Brotherhood, cans, and boomers. The cans don't require a lot of effort as I'm already on good terms with them after Boulder City, so if I wanted I could just walk in, say hello, and then leave. Going down to Camp McCarran and heading west is by far the fastest way for me to reach them, so that's exactly what I do. Speed isn't exactly something that I'm aiming for on the journey though, as I stop to take out every fiend along the way. That includes the 3 leaders for the bounty hunting quest, by the way. One of these days, someone will figure out how to balance long-range stealth builds in these games. Today is not that day, however, and as such I enjoy myself as I silently pick off all the unsuspecting undesirables one by one. Driver Defy was never going to be an issue, even without stealth. If you are stupid enough to rush down someone with a high-powered sniper rifle with nothing but a golf club, you're either very brave or very stupid, and judging by his profession, I think the answer is quite clear. Violet, Violetta, and the rest of the pack were hunted down from a distance with ease, which left only Cook. Of course, I do not even need to deal with him myself, as the safer and more fun option is to just snipe his prized Brahmin, causing him to go nuts and attack his own men. Ultimately, they kill Cook before you can clear them out, but it's not a huge issue. I just mop up the last of the survivors and can add another head to the collection in my back pocket, marking Red Rock on the map, and as I said, I can technically leave now if I want, but that didn't sound very fun. Instead, I waited until midnight, followed Papa Can into his room, and as soon as he was fast asleep, I made great use of my silencer as I took him out without anyone else realizing. Not quite satisfied with just murdering their leader, I then did the same to Regis, which was then shortly followed by everyone else as I perched myself on the high ground and began taking them out one at a time. Jessup and his men had also decided to come back to the canyon just at the right time to get to see one of my explosive rounds up close. Finally, I took out Jack and Diane, where I did take a little bit of damage, but regardless, the cans are now gone and it was off to Nellis. George gets what's coming to him, the slimy bastard, and now it's time for the bombing run. Normally, I would just run in and wait by the destroyed house that's outside of their range, but you see, I was able to get a couple more doses of turbo while getting to know the cans, so I just used one of them, and thanks to the extended duration provided by Logan's loophole, I can outrun the entire bombardment in mere seconds. Thankfully, when I'm done talking with Raquel at the entrance and teleported to Pearl, my health is not healed, and as such, I can continue how I see fit. The Boomer's questline doesn't actually really put you in much danger, so I decide to help them with their problems. First up is Pete's story time and interrogation, followed up with fixing loyal solar panels, and finally putting the repair skill to some use. If you're wondering about the ants in the armory, well, I had a high enough speech skill that I just convinced Loyal to hand over the sonic emitter, which handles all of the killing for me. I even get to keep the experience, which is very thoughtful of the machine. This isn't enough to become idolized on its own normally, but I was aware of that, so I made sure to get some missiles to hand over to Raquel for the last few friendship points that were needed. It's now time to retrieve the bomber, and I made sure to get the rebreather from Jack as it'll take a ton of stress off me, not having to worry about losing health while drowning. After staring into Lake Glitch for a bit, I exploded some of the nearby crabmen and began swimming across the ocean floor all the way to the bomber. I don't think any of the lake lurks are actually swimming around this area, but I wanted to make sure that I was low enough that none of the ones aboard the barge would start brain blasting in my general direction. No issues from here, so I strap on the floaters, raise the bomber, and complete all of my tasks for the boomers. With the boomers by my side, all that leaves is the Brotherhood of Steel, and against my better judgment, I am determined to fight my way inside and blow up their house. There is no benefit to me doing this, but again, much like exterminating the cans, it just seems like so much more fun. First though, I wanted just one more level so I could take another perk at level 12. You know where this is going. I travel back to the Hidden Valley, and rather than make my way inside the bunker, head for the crater with the nearby centaurs. I don't even really need to bother with stealth here. The centaurs' range capabilities are so laughably bad that I can kinda just sidestep out of their way. After they're out of the picture, I begin to scale the side of Black Mountain until I'm behind the gate to the compound. I take advantage of my situation and outsnipe the Nightkin sniper before proceeding, and once I make it to the top of the building, I can use my explosive round to take out the last 2 Nightkin who thought they were being sneaky. Truthfully, normal or armor piercing rounds probably would have been a lot better here, as I could have taken them both out silently rather than taking a few bullets from the second Nightkin. Thanks to my armor, it only takes a very small portion of my health, so I'm all good. With the compound clear, I go into the storage room, repair Rhonda, completing the quest, and reaching level 12. I end up taking the finesse perk just in case the Brotherhood finds me and I can't rely on stealth, as it means I will still at the very least have a higher than normal chance of landing a critical hit. With nothing left to lose, I entered the bunker and began to stealth. I waited for the first 3 members who approach you to line themselves up so that a single well-timed explosive round would take them all out. As for the backup in the next room who are out of sight, well, as these are explosive rounds, they obviously come with a decent sized blast radius, so just firing a shot into the back of the room usually deals with the issue. The game is on normal, by the way. Most of you can probably tell, but I thought it was worth bringing up to demonstrate how powerful the rifle truly is. I use the blast to my advantage again as I fire a shot down the stairs to move Ramos out of the way. Ramos has next to no health anyway, so it really shouldn't come as a surprise that this killed him. Now, for the next step in my master plan, and the reason I made sure to max out my science skill before coming here, is so I can hack into Ramos' security terminal and change the targeting parameters on all the turrets in the base so that they'll fire on all Brotherhood personnel. If you have ever tried to fight these turrets before, then you understand just how easily they are able to wipe out the Brotherhood on the first floor. I am still able to help take a few down though. After all, this was the reason I stocked up on armor-piercing rounds. Onto the bottom floor, and once again I pulled out the explosive rounds to quickly clear out any rooms that I couldn't get a clear line of sight on. Not that the reinforcements down here are that difficult, as it's mostly just scribes, so even the normal rounds tear through them like they're made of tissue paper. I then used my 100 in science to access the terminal, getting the password right in my first try no less, and dooming the Brotherhood by burying them alive. Once again, I was way more worried about this segment than I should have been, as that was easier than I thought. On the bright side, that was the last of the factions, so it's back to Yes Man, and thanks to my positive rep with the NCR after I dropped those severed heads on their doorstep, I have the option to go and save Kimball, and now you're finally going to see why I couldn't side with the NCR. Much like with taking the barge to the fort, whenever you meet up with Ranger Grant and agree to protect the President, the game skips ahead to the next day, and in the process, healing your character back to full health. Once again, I made a backup save just before talking to Yes Man to show you this, so I load back, tell him the President is about to have a new hole to whistle through, and proceed on my way to the substation. As I was at the dry lake before, I can just walk over from there. This time I actually get to take out the ants, as there is no radio delivery boy to do all the heavy lifting. After dealing with the ants, I am still a tad bloodthirsty, so I begin hunting the best game of all. Man. I absolutely did not want to run the risk of the soldiers attacking me all at once when I entered the station, so this seemed like the best course of action. All that leaves is the Battle of Hoover Dam, so let's get to it. This was probably the absolute slowest I have ever done this section, simply because one wrong move and I was liable to get counter-sniped by some trigger-happy Legion soldier also wielding an anti-material rifle. Explosive rounds were incredibly effective at taking out groups of enemies if I could get them just as they spawned, and it's also incredibly satisfying. Inside the dam, now the NCR was onto my tricks, it was literally like playing a stealth game. Fortunately, the armor-piercing rounds were a guaranteed one-shot, so long as I fired first. I did miss one of my shots and it cost me dearly, as an NCR trooper was able to get off 3 of his own before I put him down. Fortunately, the Mark II combat armor is really coming in clutch. Back outside, and the situation is a little dire as Centurions don't go down to the explosive rounds immediately, resulting in more damage. Lucky for me, these are the last of the ranged Legion soldiers I need to worry about, as the Securitrons take care of the rest on the way to the Legate's camp. Now, I don't mean for what comes next to sound underwhelming, but here's how it went down. All of the Praetorians only have ballistic fists. Funny enough, my high-powered sniper rifle outranges them and obliterates them before they even have a chance to close the gap. All that leaves is Lanius. So, with a little bit of steady for good measure and some psycho, combined with an explosive round and a guaranteed stealth critical, what do you think is about to happen? His final 2 guards get taken out in the explosive blast radius as I fire 2 shots into the Legate's tent, leaving only General Oliver. I mentioned before how Logan's loophole and by extension Turbo would save the run. Well, it's about to happen again. Once the General busts down the gate, I talk him into a fight, and the instant I have control, I just open the Pip-Boy and use the Turbo so that I can back away out of the Rangers' firing line, as there is no way I survive a frontal assault with my 46 hit points. Even in doing this, I get hit a couple of times, bringing me down to a sliver. 4 HP to be exact if you're curious. I wait just a few seconds until I feel they're focusing on the Securitrons, and then fire 2 explosive rounds to help out. This works, so I speak with Yes Man, finishing the game and proving yes, you can indeed beat Fallout New Vegas without healing. Well, that was a nerve-wracking experience. Fun, but ultimately tense the entire way through. Also, just for proof, I saved right before Oliver entered the camp so that I could load back after the credits and show you my in-game stats just to prove that I never used any healing supplies whatsoever. This actually ended up being one of my shorter runs, only clocking in around 4 hours long. Which I suppose makes sense. I wasn't exactly engaging in a lot of side activities, as much like the chase videos, doing so would have hindered my progress in the run, especially if I ended up taking the necessary amounts of damage in the process. Regardless, that's going to be in this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like, and you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe. Try to have one of these videos every week. My name is Nerbit, stay safe, everyone. I'll see y'all in the next video.